Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Pander.
And I'm Zachary Adam Eisenheimer.
And our busy week of podcasts continues. We've been releasing these on a daily basis. I hope you've been enjoying them. We've had a couple out so far. Tuesday night, so our podcast looking at the Whitecaps preparations going into Sunday's first kick. Look at the pre-season friendlies. Wednesday night show, episode 441, was our Whitecaps season preview and bold predictions. And in this episode, we're going to be previewing both the MLS Western Conference, the MLS Eastern Conference. We're going to bring you some audio from coaches around the league. We're going to bring you some audio from players around the league. So a lot to pack into this. This one is probably going to be more than 1 hour. I can feel that now as we're recording this. So much to get through. We've got one more episode that we're going to bring you out this week. Tomorrow night, episode 443, Joe Deasy and Peter Hicken will be back with a Whitecaps Portland preview podcast and a couple of new fun games that they're going to have in the show as well. So all of that is still to come. But before we get to that, regular listeners will know that at the start of our usual weekly show, we have been utilising Steve's gift that keeps giving. His 2020 Christmas present to myself and Zach. It's a box of 2011 Upper Deck soccer cards. We've been opening a pack on each show. For the daily ones, we thought that was a bit much, so we've only done 2 packs on the shows that we've brought out this week, the second of which is going to be tonight. After that, we're going to have opened 6 packs altogether. And then on Sunday's live YouTube watch-along for the Whitecaps Timbers game, Zach and me are going to pick our best 11 from the cards that we've opened so far. And then on a weekly basis, maybe monthly basis, we'll update it. Move people in and out of that starting 11 and just try and get the best team we can by the end of the year. Obviously, we'll all have opened our cards by the end of the year, so it'll be interesting to see how our teams compare by that point. So let's get into this week's pack. Let's see what goodies we're going to open up this time. Zach has got his helper Kirk with us again, opening these packs. So let's see what we've got this time.
Kirk's very giddy. Let's go.
I just love this. I've got to say, when I opened the Scotland sticker pack on the East 5 podcast, it didn't go down as well with the guys. They didn't seem to grasp the whole visual side. Oh, that was a nice rip.
Can I go first this time, Michael?
Yes, you can.
I have from Sky Blue FC, number 1 keeper, Karen Bardsley.
Oh, well, I'm going from back to front, and I'm not mixing everything up this time. But I mean, classic card. Some may call him a legend, because he is, from the San Jose Earthquakes.
Oh, wow.
He's a striker. He
Wando.
wears number 8. It's only the record breaker himself, Chris Wondolowski. Looking like he's going to jump in the crowd.
Yeah, he's celebrating with the Ultras.
Yeah.
Then the next card in our... Oh, my goodness. I've seen the next card, and I've seen the one after that.
Yeah, I've just seen what I've got coming up. This is exciting.
This is the best pack so far. I think technically this the first... Well, I can't remember if it's the first official signing, but the first captain was supposed to be the first DP. Jay Demerit.
Oh, you finally got a Whitecap.
Yeah.
I was all set to say by the end of this, the Whitecaps still not performing in 2011 the way we would have hoped. Well, this is an interesting card for me. He's from TFC. I've already got his jersey card. It's only Dwayne De Rosario.
Oh, nice.
My cards tend to go downhill after this in this pack, I've got to say. I mean, Wondo and Dero, what a start.
Someone who, oh my goodness, this pack is unbelievable. Someone who's done a fair amount of marking of Dero over the years. Before we had number 6, now we have number 8, West Knight.
Oh, this is a fantastic pack.
Oh, it gets better. Not better. It gets good. There's other good parts.
Oh, playing for Washington Freedom. Lini Mike-Shaland.
My next is my first MLS Super Draft card. And it is he's still active in the game. I don't know if he moved the off season, but last year I can't remember now. But last year I think he did move. But anyways, he was at LA Galaxy last year, but he was originally drafted by DC. Someone I think both of you have mentioned you kind of wish had maybe been in Vancouver. He's good on the field. He's good with the cookbook. He's Perry Kitchen.
Oh, yeah. You'll always find me in Perry Kitchen at parties.
Yeah, I would have liked to see him instead of Salgado. Honestly, I thought he would have been a nice fit.
Well, I've got a guy that's been around the league for a while. This card, he's at LA Galaxy. He'd spent the previous 2 years at TFC. It's Chad Barrett.
Oh, my next card is a special one. It's Jose
Mourinho.
No, I wish. He's current. Well, actually, I don't know. I think currently he's with LAFC. He formed an army at one point in his life. It's the Philadelphia Union's Jordan Harvey.
Future Whitecap.
Jay Demerit, West Knight, and Jordan Harvey. That's 3 out of 4 in the back.
Didn't he join in 2011? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, during that season.
Yeah.
Yeah, he joined in the summer. That's a fantastic pack. Well, I've got a Portland Timber, their first season in the league. Guy that had been with Chicago Fire, midfielder, Peter Lowry. Not really familiar with him, I've got to say.
No, I've heard of him, but I think he might have even picked in the expansion draft, if I'm not mistaken.
Last but not least, I got another keeper. This one might, probably be number 2 behind Pickens for me. This is Houston Dynamo's Tally Hall.
Oh, I always remind me of fox hunting. Tally Hall! Well, my last card, sadly, it's. I mean, I just Googled his name just now. He died in 2012.
Wait, what?
Yeah. It's the famous American 60s, 70s country singer Andy Williams. Oh, different Andy Williams. Different Andy Williams. Yeah. Sorry. He's actually Toronto-born, right midfielder, Andy Williams.
Didn't he play for Jamaica?
I think so.
No, he went off his own accord. Yeah, he had a good career actually in MLS. Columbus, Miami Fusion, New England, MetroStars, Chicago Fire, Real Salt Lake, and 2011 was actually his last year in the league. So, kind of died as a footballer, I guess.
My 6-pack was by far the most fruitful.
Is that the first 6-pack you've ever had in your life?
Jay Demerit, West Knight, Jordan Harvey, Perry Kitchen, Tally Hall, and of course, Karen Bardsley.
I just want to show you as well, this is what I'm putting all the cards in. You'll see this on our live YouTube thing. Oh, nice. This came when I ordered the 2018 FIFA World Cup stickers. They all came loose in 2 of these packs. I just finished doing them this year.
I got to reorganize mine because I have mine in team order, so I'm going to have to...
Yeah, I've got mine in numerical order, and I've actually counted out the proper spots.
So am I going to put West... Oh, yeah.
Very anal.
Am I going to put West... all my favorites in the team? I might have to do 2 teams.
Well, have a think about that, because we've got football stuff to talk about, guys. We're going to be previewing MLS in this episode. Mostly the Western Conference, but we will have a little bit look at the East as well. So it's going to be a busy show. Let's just get straight to it. who have you got to win the Western Conference regular season?
I will go with Minnesota.
Funnily enough, I should have come in first. I've also gone for Minnesota.
Minnesota is a great show for the Western Conference, top place. It's hard not to see the Flounders. I guess the top three I think are going to be Minnesota, the Flounders, and a resurgent LAFC.
Yeah. You kind of feel they have to do better than they did last season. But last season was just so weird just in general. And the points per game stuff clearly didn't help. What about making the MLS Cup? Is Seattle making it 3 times in a row?
Let's hope not.
I don't think so. I don't think that they... I didn't think they had it last year. And playing against Columbus, I don't think they did. I don't know. They just got... I don't want to say lucky, but Minnesota really shat the bed.
Yeah.
In that thing. And Seattle, I don't even think they should have been in that final because they really didn't. Remember that opening kickoff? If I'm not mistaken, they just kicked it out of the end zone like they were playing a rugby touch or something like that. Like it was like weird what they were doing, and they didn't seem to be in the right strategy or whatever. They didn't really have the right setup to go against Columbus. So it was just odd to me. I don't think they will make it this time. I think the other teams are just too strong.
I just have this feeling that they might. Going with the experience, getting the job done again. Schmetzer seems to work his magic when it comes to the playoffs. Hopefully they don't. I'd love it to be Minnesota if it's not the Whitecaps, just because I really like what Adrian Heath's doing there, and we'll talk about them in a sec. But yeah, I find it hard to see a team dislodging Seattle because they seem to be able to get it done when it matters the most. That's the thing. So 8 teams made the playoffs last season. Now, of those 8, which were KC, Seattle, Portland, Minnesota, Colorado, Dallas, LAFC, and San Jose, those 8 can't make it this year because only 7 teams make it from the West this year. So, from those 8, and you can pick more than one, which of those teams aren't making the playoffs this year?
I have 3. I got Colorado, Dallas, and San Jose. Those are the 3 that I see not making the playoffs.
I think that's a very, very good shout.
The other teams are strong.
Say that again.
Colorado, Dallas, and San Jose are the 3 teams I don't have making the playoffs.
Oh, from that list, yes. Okay. Yeah, Colorado for sure. San Jose, I think you're right. And what was the other one? Dallas?
Dallas, yeah.
Yeah. Barrios, was it Barrios left finally? Yeah, I could see that. I think they're replaced by obviously.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Because if you're losing 3, there's going to be 2 replacements. So who are the 2 teams then that didn't make the playoffs? So last year, Whitecaps, Galaxy, RSL, and Houston missed out. You've now got Austin as well. So there's 5 teams. So, I mean, I kind of agree. I think Colorado, Dallas, and San Jose won't make it.
I have Galaxy and the Salt Caps making the playoffs.
I think it's Galaxy and Houston.
I think it's Houston and the Whitecaps. And I'll come to why.
But honestly, I think it's the Galaxy and the Whitecaps for me.
Michael, you just think Vanny needs more time to turn things around in LA?
I think he definitely needs more time. Or an amazing summer transfer window. Because I spent a little bit of time before we did this tonight just looking at what the teams have brought in and stuff. And we'll delve into all of that shortly. We'll kind of have a look at the Western Conference team by team. But I think one thing that is pretty certain is that it's going to be another tough campaign in the West. I think it's a very open conference. I think every team's capable of beating every other team. It's going to be tough. It's going to be challenging. It always seems to be that in the West, and things seem to have got much, much closer. So MLS had a number of different conference calls with various coaches from around the league this week. So I asked a couple of them. So I asked a few of them just what they make of the Western Conference this year. How tough are they expecting it to be? So let's just play a little bit of audio now. First of all, we're going to hear from the team that won the West last year, Sporting KC's Peter Vermees. Then we're going to hear from Seattle's Brian Schmetzer, and we'll round things off with LAFC's Bob Bradley. The Western Conference looks wide open again this season. It looks like it's going to be another tough campaign for you. You're defending first place. What are you expecting in the West this year?
Yeah, I think you said it. It's not just wide open, but it's very competitive. There's not in Major League Soccer. There's not an easy game. There's so much parity in different ways. Sometimes it's the travel. Sometimes it's the climate. Sometimes it's the altitude. Sometimes it's just a congestion of schedule. And so as I try to tell a lot of players that come to this league, or if we're interested in a foreign player coming to this league, I always tell them off the bat, I said, look, if you think you're coming to this league for a vacation, you shouldn't come here, because it's not that type of league. Our league is very difficult. It's very physical. It's a very fast-paced league. And so you have to be ready for it. And then you have to be ready for all those other things that I talked about, the travel, the climate, the altitude, all of those things, congestion of schedule, what have you. And then you take that the teams are really good. Coaches have very good ideas, very good models of play in which they want to achieve their success with. And so each week is a different challenge, and you have to be ready for it. Staffs have to be ready for it to find ways in which they can break teams down. Players have to find not only ways in which they can be successful, but they have to be consistent at it. And then you take, it's just a difficult conference. You got some really, really big time teams in it, and you have to be on top of your game on a regular basis. So for us, it's cliche, but for sure it's one game at a time. No doubt. And the other piece too is that you have to understand that it's a long season, and you have to know that you're in a marathon, you're not in a sprint, and you can't lose yourself. One of the coaches I played for always had a great statement, right? The highs, you can never take the highs too high, and you can never take the lows too low. You got to kind of keep yourself in the environment, keep yourself competitive, and that's what we'll try to do like we always do.
Hi again, Brian. I just wanted to ask you about the Western Conference this season. It's always competitive, it's always close, it's always tight. The teams that didn't make it into the playoffs last year, some of them's made some big additions. What are you expecting from the conference this year?
Dogfight. I mean, you look up and down the West Coast. You look a little bit further inland. I mean, they're all good teams. Look what Robin did with Colorado last year. I mean, that's tremendous coaching. Mateus in San Jose, Bob, obviously, Greg. I mean, again, Greg and I have a little bit of a history back and forth, Seattle and Toronto. There's so many good teams and good coaches in MLS and certainly on the Western Conference. It's going to be a dogfight. Every game is going to be competitive. And I think that's what the league wants. I think that's good for our sport. If the level is being raised every year, I think that just makes the games better. So kudos to the decision makers at the top. Kudos to the teams that are adding players. And, certainly we want to always put ourselves in that top tier of clubs in MLS.
Hi there, Bob. I've asked a couple of coaches in the West this today. What are you expecting from the Western Conference this season? It's always a close, competitive league, but there's teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that seem to have invested really heavily this year. Brian Schmetzer described it as going to be a dogfight. Just curious for your thoughts on it.
I always go into every season to see what teams look like, knowing that everyone's finding better. I think that's one of the positive aspects of the league. And so until I see teams play regular season games, it's hard to comment too much. But it's always exciting as we get started to see what everybody's all about.
So some thoughts on the West there from SKC's Peter Vermees, Seattle's Brian Schmetzer, and LAFC's Bob Bradley. So let's dig into the teams now on an individual team-by-team basis. So we had been talking about Greg Vanney and LA Galaxy just before we played the audio there. So let's kick things off with them. I mean, having a look at what the Galaxy have done just now, 10 guys have gone out and 11 guys have come in. I guess a couple of well-known ones, maybe they're two big additions, Villafania from Portland, Victor Vasquez, the former TFC guy that's played with Vanni before. They've brought in a goalkeeper, 5 defenders, 4 midfielders and a forward. They didn't take up the loan option for Christian Pavon, which surprised many people. But the fact that he was just charged with rape in Argentina in March was potentially a good decision by them. It was for an incident that happened in 2019. So, I mean, folk were like, why did they not bring him back? So maybe they knew that was hanging over them. Now, the Galaxy finished 10th last year, 6 wins, 4 draws, 12 defeats. Their 46 goals against was the second worst in the West. I don't think they've improved enough defensively to make them a playoff team, which is why I haven't got them going in. And I think Vanni's going to need, if you look at how he struggled when he first came to TFC, really, it's only when he started really, really splashing the cash that kind of TFC turned it around. And I'm a fan of Vanni. I like what Vanni did there. I don't think he's going to do it in one season with the Galaxy.
I don't know. I disagree a little bit. I think they've improved at fullback. They have some better fullbacks they brought in. I think they've improved at keeper. I don't think Bingham was a great keeper. And I think if he's healthy, Vasquez can be a difference maker. Now I know his 1 year in Toronto was his best year ever, like ever. But
does he still have it though?
Well, but I think Vanni's going to shape things around him a little bit, providing he's fit, and I think that could be really. I don't know. I can see them making the playoffs. Like Jorge Villafania from Portland, I think is a good player they brought in. They brought in former Flounder O'Neill Fisher, who's also I think often plays fullback. And then Vasquez and Jonathan Bond from West Brom. I think those are 4 solid pickups. And you got some homegrown guys in there as well.
I mean, what do you think, Steve? Do you think Vanni can do it all in 1 year? You seem to think he can.
Yeah, I think he's got the pedigree to turn things around. He's like, I would compare him to like a Bruce Arena type, where he could bring players in. I honestly gave him no shot in TFC of doing like, and he was able to quickly get. Now, obviously, they might have considered a better base compared to what they did, but I just see them having a better support group and everything in Vanni, where the players can actually get a system going and be able to bring them up into those thoughts.
When Vanni was appointed as the TFC head coach, there was a lot of pressure on him. He was going to a team that had not made the playoffs in any of their first 7 seasons. His first season there, he didn't make the playoffs either, despite the money that was being spent by the team. But Vanni spent 7 years in Toronto. In that time, he took them to 3 MLS Cups. He won one of them. He took them to within a ball hair of winning the CONCACAF Champions League. He did so well with that team, and he built them up so well. Now he's gone to a team that he used to play for. They've won multiple MLS Cups. They're in a market that demands success. Is he feeling the pressure again, or a different kind of pressure? Let's find out from the man himself. Hi there, Greg. Good to chat to you again. We've seen what you've done in Toronto the past few years, how you built that team, took them to the playoffs for a first time. There was a pressure when you went there to get the team to be playoff contenders, and you did that. Do you feel a different kind of pressure in LA now because it's a team with such a storied history that's trying to get back to past glories?
For me personally, I feel the same pressure, and the pressure for me always is to win championships. It's to win trophies. It's to ultimately be successful. It's to try to find ways in still what is a relatively young league to push our franchise to the top, so that other franchises are trying to emulate what we're doing, because we're all still defining ourselves at the highest level, and so that's our ambition every single day. And Toronto was the ambition, and now here in LA, I think we have incredible resources and support from the top and through our management. We've got good players and more players coming in. And so that's every single day that we approach. It's with that goal and ambition in mind. And that's the culture and environment we try to create. And the only way we get to those things, that the winning championships and doing that, is getting through the process and working every day in the right way. And those things start to take care of themselves if you do all the little things well. So that's my energy, and my focus is on that, and trying to do what I can every single day to keep pushing the Galaxy franchise forward and to the highest level, the things that I can control, and working with those around me so that we're all on the same page and that we're all efficient in trying to achieve our goals. So that for me is always the ambition, and I will always put the most amount of pressure on myself, more than anyone around me can put on me. And I'm nervous when I come into training every single morning, because I want to make sure that the guys feel like the training session had massive value for them and that they got something out of it. So I approach every day that way, that I don't feel any more pressure that we need to win championships or anything. I think that's just a part of how we approach every single day.
So Greg Vanney there, always feeling pressure, even feeling the pressure when he turns up at training. That's what you want to hear from a coach. You want a coach that's challenging himself to do better, constantly do better. He's coming to the Galaxy now with a great body of work under him, to be honest. What he's done at TFC, I know they spent money, but he's built a great solid footing there, even down to the academy, and you're kind of already seeing the after effects of that this season with what Chris Armas's men have done in the CONCACAF Champions League with basically the same squad that Greg Vanney built. And I guess tied in with how successful the Galaxy are going to be this year, how successful Vanney is going to be, is what can Vanney do to unlock Javier Hernandez? Chicharito last year just had such a disappointing season. He played in 12 games overall, only 7 of those were starts. He mustered just 2 goals, no assists, and only 7 shots on target for the entire season. It's not what they expected when they splashed that large amount of money on bringing him in. We know what he's done in the past. We talked about it on the show before, that in recent years, though, he just has not been performing at the top level that we know he can. And he certainly didn't show that last year. He doesn't need us to tell him that. All the media have been telling him that. It's something he's acknowledged. He did an interview with the LA Times where he spoke about being at rock bottom. And he's been very open about that, very open about his struggles. And he was also very open this week on one of the MLS calls. I just want to play a little bit of audio from it, because I think it's an important thing to discuss. I think it's an important thing to have in the open, just about the struggles that these players do have when they're living their lives in the public spotlight. Here's Chicharito.
I read your interview with the LA Times, and you spoke about reaching rock bottom. And that's something that's very real and something that's difficult to talk about, but it's something that every person at some point in their life, especially in this last year, kind of has to go through. People deal with sadness and loneliness and grief and all that. And obviously, when you're someone like yourself, you're kind of dealing with it while also being on TV every week and with millions of social media followers and comments and everything like that. With that said, first of all, how are you on a personal level? How's life? How are things? And
I'm great.
As a professional athlete, how important is it to kind of talk about those sort of things and emotions that people sometimes overlook because they just want to see you playing soccer?
Yeah, I think, and thank you for bringing this subject that I'm very into it, and I believe a lot. But I think it's coming on not only for the soccer athletes, it's coming from you guys too. Because I think the narrative of ourselves is in your hands sometimes, and it's in my hands, for example, right? Because I can post something that is very vulnerable, and if you twist it, it cannot have the same impact like your question right now. So I think what you said, that is a subject that is very difficult to talk, that is difficult. I hope one day we can normalize that it doesn't matter how much fame you have, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how much success you have in the superficial way, it doesn't matter nothing about it. You're still a human, right? You are not more or less than any human being in this world. It doesn't matter. So I think that's a world not only of us in a way. I'm speaking us because I don't want to separate it myself from the humans all around the world, but I mean like sport athletes, and where your job has a lot of, like you said, a lot of engagement in social media, a lot of impact in your words, a lot of like kind of responsibility. I think we shouldn't ask for perfection, because perfection doesn't exist. That's what makes us incredible, that we are humans and we are not perfect, and each day we can improve, each day we can learn, each day, like you said it, we go through very difficult things every single day. It doesn't matter, difficultness and difficult things never going to stop in your life. When you try to reach like a flat happy place, that's not life. It's like soccer, it's like jobs, you always want to bring an improvement in yourself, in an emotional way, when you're a dad, when you are with a family, when you are with friends, when you are with a couple, when you are with your boss, when you are the boss, when you are posting things. Like, life is like that. That's the interesting part of it. Like, you can keep knowing yourself every single moment. And sorry that I keep like speaking more than another questions, but that's a subject that I'm trying to do in a way in interviews, in my social media. And my social media is easier because I don't have no one to ask me. But thank you specifically, because I don't want to say that you do a better job than the other guys that have been asking me. But I hope one day we can normalize ourselves, that we are humans, right? We are humans. It doesn't matter. Being here in this position doesn't mean that I have more value than yourself, guys, or than any other person working here in the stadium or whatever. We're just human. And so we go through a lot of stuff. We're going to keep going through stuff. But the most important thing is, like, we can see ourselves as a human, that we want to push ourselves doing stuff. We want to do what we are passionate about it. But we shouldn't ask perfection, for ourselves, because we are humans in the end. I'm not a robot. I'm not perfect. No one is going to do it. So that's the funny thing. And that's the paradoxical thing in this life. And that's the incredible thing, that you always can know yourself and you can improve and you can grow.
Chicharito there, just chatting about the pressures to perform, the pressure on him, and there is pressure on him because of what he's done before. Will we see a much better Javier Hernandez this year in MLS? You have to think that if the Galaxy are going to do anything, then they need him to have an outstanding season down there. But enough of the Galaxy. We're going to stay in Los Angeles, though, as we turn our attention to their cross-city rivals, LAFC. I mean, we talked about we're expecting LAFC to be much better this time around. They were 7th in the West last year. They've only brought 5 players in, and one of them is a homegrown goalkeeper. So they've brought in 2 defenders. They got Farfan in from the Timbers, Kim Moon Hwan from Korea, and they've brought in 2 forwards, the experienced Corey Bear from RSL, and then just a guy from India 11, Cal Jennings. So, I mean, not a lot of huge additions for LAFC, but this is a team that's already stacked. You've got Vela, you've got Rossi, you've got all the other guys that's been doing the business. 8 guys have moved on, including Bradley Wright Phillips, and they didn't take up the loan deal for Brian Rodriguez. You still have to feel the firepower is there. We've spoken before, though, that defensively they've kind of been a little bit of a mess at times. Can they solidify that enough to be at the top? Is it going to be another case of like doing well in the regular season and then as soon as they get to the playoffs, they struggle?
My concern is that definitely their back end. Like, other than Jordan Harvey, I don't recognize anybody as a defender on their team. Like Farfan a little bit, Blackman was a draft pick, but other than that, I don't know who they brought in, and it's just a matter of whether they can outscore teams and how well Vermeer and goal and between the sticks can handle the pressure that's going to be put on them. So it's just a matter of that. I think probably their most valuable defender is going to have to be Mark Anthony Kaye, because he's going to be he has to help out that defense in where he sticks around in the back end.
Yeah,
I don't know a lot about Kim Moon Hwan. But if he can play a significant role for them, turning their defense around, that would be really helpful. I think Corey Baird could be a player that does some damage for them. When you think about how the contributions of Bradley Wright Phillips, and kind of like when there's so much attention being paid to Vela and Rossi, when there's so much attention being played to those 2 players, I think Corey Baird is a person, whether starting or coming off the bench, could make some like significant contributions. And I agree with Steve. If Mark Anthony Kaye is in top form, I think he can help lead a team. And I really think they're going to have a bounce back regular season. What happens in the playoffs? That's a little bit more of the lottery that everyone wants to be a part of.
Well, talking of Mark Anthony Kaye, I agree with Steve. I think it's going to be a very big season for Mark, an important season for Mark, and I think he's just going to be such a key piece of this LAFC side this year. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Hopefully he can get the business done for LAFC. Let's hear a little bit from the man himself. Hi there, Mark. Good to speak to you again. I just wanted to touch on you being away with Canada. Obviously, it's going to be a busy year for you at club and at country level. How much better prepared for the season do you feel, though, being away, having these competitive games under your belt with the national team? And kind of a second part of that, how difficult then is it going to be to switch between all the games, between LAFC and Canada, the different mindsets, the different tactics, and everything in that you're going to need to bring this year?
Yeah, no, I think, earlier this year, the two camps with Canada have definitely set me up well for the beginning of the season and for preseason with LAFC. Games are crucial to player development, and the fact that I already have, obviously I only played in the second one, but having 90 in a competitive match that means something under my belt it's good, and I'm able to take that confidence from that game and use it here at LAFC. It's going to be a busy year, like you said, obviously, and I think the top footballers in the world figure out ways how to deal with these busy international schedules and busy league schedules. So if I ever want to see myself as one of those players in the world, then I need to figure out a way to deal with it. The coaching staff here are very good at understanding what goes on at Canada stays at Canada, and then Canada is the same way. So, it's going to be an interesting year. It's an exciting year with a lot of football. But, it's all positive things. Nothing. It's good problems to have.
LAFC and Canadian national team midfielder Mark Anthony Kaye there, speaking on one of the MLS Media Week calls this week. And one of the other things he actually mentioned on that call was his desire to eventually go and play in Europe. So, you feel that he's got the talent. He needs to kind of show it. The whole team needs to kind of show it this year. There's a lot of pressure on them to deliver a better showing in the playoffs, and I think Mark will feel that as well. So let's just see what they can bring, but you have to fancy them to do much better than they did last year. I guess let's just stick in California very quickly. We all feel San Jose is not going to make the playoffs, that they're going to drop out. They were 8th last year. They just sneaked in. Now, because of that, I've been surprised because, again, not much happening with San Jose. It was the same last year. Two big pieces have moved on as well. Nick Lima's gone to Austin, as has Danny Houston. They've brought 4 in, and none of them kind of jump out at you as being maybe the difference makers. Maybe Javier Lopez, who's on loan from Chivas. He's 26. I don't know. It's a strange one. I thought they'd be a lot busier. I don't feel they've got anywhere near what it takes to be competitive this year.
Yeah, I was surprised that they let both those players go to Austin. I thought Nick Lima was someone who was quality for them. Obviously, they lost him in the expansion draft, but I was a little surprised that they would leave someone of that quality available. Maybe there's some contractual stuff there I'm not aware of, but I think Lima is going to be a big loss. Danny Houston, I think, was a quality contributor for them. Not always the number one choice, but I think was good. And again, also taken. My notes say in the expansion draft.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to miss those guys. And you're right, Michael. The few players they brought in don't look to necessarily match up to that. So it'll be interesting what happens. If I remember correctly, their season also kind of nosedived a little bit last year when Eriksson left, right? When Eriksson went back to Europe, and it seems like they haven't replaced him. So those are all reasons why I don't think they're going to be.
They were very up and down as they have been the last couple of seasons. I just don't see it, and I guess you agree, Steve.
Yeah, it's just a matter of that you really have to have a lot of confidence in their coaching, their coach, whether he can really get these guys elevated. I like a lot of their players, like Espinoza. I'm a big fan of his, but it's just, and I agree with Zach with the fact that losing Eriksson really turned them into a lower level team at one point. Like you'd love to think that Wondolowski could still have that magic, but he is getting older.
I know, you have to wonder whether he can have the kind of season that he had last year, which, I mean, even that surprised the hell out of me because folk were thinking he was going to hang his boots up, but he's still going.
Yeah, the one guy that, I don't know, I can't remember if you guys mentioned it, but Judson, the Brazilian, I think he can be a catalyst to them, but other than that, I don't see anything that's really standing out to me on their side. And it's just a matter of whether if their coach can get these players into a elevated position where they can see players that we don't recognize and maybe they actually become better players.
Now, we're not going to go into every single team in depth, so don't worry about that. But there are a couple more that we're going to do. So
I spent all day yesterday looking at all them.
Oh, well, we can't. I was going to lump them together. I was going to lump them together in bits.
No worries. I want to go to sleep.
So, SKC, Johnny Russell FC, first in the West last year, third overall in MLS. They've brought in 7. They've let 6 go. 12 wins last year, so they were impressive. 4 of the 7 that they've brought in, though, are homegrowns. Of the others that they've brought in, 25-year-old French defensive midfielder, Remy Walter. He's played for Nancy, he's played for Nice, he's been capped at under-21 level. And a 29-year-old French centre-back, Nicolas Isimat-Mirin. So he's got great experience. He's played with PSV, he's played with Besiktas, Toulouse. I mean, he's hopefully feeling that he's not coming to KC to lose, and he's hoping to be there to win. Solid additions for an already solid team. I mean, they're going to be there or thereabouts.
We're all wondering how they're going to recover from the loss of Eric Hurtado. Aside from that, though, this would be, I think, the second year in a row where they're moving on from a really significant, solid leader and contributor from their backline in Matt Beasler, going to Austin. And so we'll see if the gentleman you mentioned, Michael, who was it? Was it Nicholas?
Yeah, I feel like they surrendered Opara and Beasler too easily to opposition teams. So hopefully bringing this French center back in will turn that around. And
I fancy them for second or third in the West, I've got to say.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see how they get if they're able to overcome that, because Beasler is he's a local guy, right? Isn't he?
Yeah.
And been there his whole career, and you kind of thought he would end his career there, but in MLS with the cap or the salary budget and how that makes it hard. So Zuzi, I guess, is still around, but Beasler is now gone. So that is going to be massive. But whatever you think of him, I know we used to taunt him back in the day. Vermees. Actually, Michael, I was looking through my old albums and I found I have some Peter Vermees U.S. men's national team cards.
Oh, wow.
I'll show you sometime. They're actually at my office. But he, whatever you think about him, he has always done a really good job at having everyone in the organization, everyone in the squad know their style of play and playing it. And so I think, I agree with you guys. I can't see them being outside the top 3. And I know they dip below that, but I really think they'll be the top 3 team.
And I can't remember how many goals Polito had last year, but I think it wasn't that many, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he didn't quite set the header alight, I think, the way that a lot of teams exporters expect him to. I mean, he did well.
Yeah, I'm just looking at how many he only scored 6 goals last year, but in 12 appearances.
Same as Cava.
So,
although in less appearances.
Yeah, so it's about half a goal a game again. So maybe that was 17 over a full season. So, but overall, I think they have the base. It's just a matter of they're very similar to LAFC, where they seem to willing to let go of the back end and in return for a more stronger attack.
Now, obviously, I can't have a show where we're talking about sport in Kansas City without bringing you a little bit of audio from Johnny Russell. So here you go. Hi, Johnny. It's obviously been a bit of a weird year. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about what that past year has been like for yourself, but also how much are you looking forward to the coming season where there's a bit more normality, you're going to get a chance to play teams that you didn't actually get to play last year?
I mean, last year was difficult for everyone, not just us. I think, everyone suffered. We were lucky enough that we managed to get somewhat of a season, although it wasn't a season that we were used to. And, you just had to adapt it. You had to make adjustments. We didn't get to play everyone. We were playing a lot of the same teams, so it became a bit sort of familiar. But like you said, this year's going to be different. We're going to play a lot more. Hopefully we can have a normal season. Hopefully we can get fans back in all the stadiums as soon as we can as well. And yeah, feels a lifetime ago that we were in Vancouver for that game. But yeah, just on the whole, a bit of a weird year on that front. And glad it's behind us, and we're looking at a different sort of season this year.
Johnny Russell there. Actually, I asked him that question pretty much a year to the day that he had been up in Vancouver for that season opener last year. Didn't get a chance to use it until now, but as he says, that certainly seems a lifetime ago. But he's looking forward to getting a little bit of normality back this season. I think we all are. One bit of note as well, the KC players and staff have all been vaccinated as well, which is a big boost for them. They seem to have done things very, very well in KC. Hopefully it won't be too long before all the other teams around MLS have had their vaccinations as well, including the Whitecaps. Let's move to the mountains. The Whitecaps' fellow mountain men, RSL and Colorado. I'm going to lump them both together because we all felt neither of them were really playoff teams. RSL last year, they just had 5 wins. They've brought in 8, they've let 8 go. They were second bottom in the West. They had the lowest goals for last year at 25. And looking at who they've brought in, they've brought in 3 forwards that is what they're hoping is going to get those goals up. I guess that's their key. If they do get them up, Rubio Rubin, who's got experience in Europe and in Mexico. He's 25 years old. He's had 7 US national team caps. Bobby Wood, if he could, but he can't. He's a 28-year-old, spent all his time in Germany, 45 US caps so far. And Anderson Julio, who's a winger from Ecuador who could be an exciting prospect. If they can put it together, do you give them a chance or still not hopeful for them?
Bobby Wood's coming from Haas Foul. I don't think. I mean, I guess he could light up MLS, but I don't.
It's a different level to what he's been playing.
Yeah, he's been in the second Bundesliga though.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, Hamburg, man.
I thought they were in the main Bundesliga.
But they were the only team to play in every Bundesliga season. But since going down, they haven't been able to come back up.
He wasn't actually meant to be joining up with RSL until the summer, the kind of the end of the German season. But Hamburg announced this week that he could just leave now, which I don't know if that was just them being really nice or if that's just kind of telling us to what input they thought he was having for them this season. But he's going to be joining now sooner than expected. Still has to go through quarantine and stuff, but they're going to have him earlier in the year than they first planned for.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's nothing really on their roster that excites me. They've lost some players too that were big players for them in the past, like Corey Baird. Obviously, we talked about him going to LAFC, but the only guy I see that is recognizable is Krylech and Rusnak, and it's all depending on if those players can play. And I think even because they were so dearth at striker that they even played. I putting Krylech at striker and it wasn't a good fit for him. So if they are able to bring other strikers in, maybe they could put him in his normal position in the midfield.
I have liked Krylach though, and he there's just something about him that he can just explode in games and have a great showing. But yeah,
he scored 8 goals, but the thing is, he's not a striker. He's more of a midfielder, and so if he can provide 8 goals from the midfield and have some other guys scoring more goals at striking positions, I think they do have a chance then. But I don't know if they have enough time to put this all together.
Colorado, I think we can probably quickly gloss over them. They were 5th last year. The whole points per game thing worked in their favour. They did have a great run after all their positive COVID tests. They've brought in 6 guys, but 4 of them are homegrowns. One's a draft pick, and the only other player they've brought in is Michael Barrios, the midfielder from Dallas. I don't see that strengthened the team. I know Robin Fraser did well with them last year, but I see them dropping quite considerably this year.
Yeah, they're a team that we didn't get to see too much of because they didn't play very much last year because they were missing a lot of games, like you said. So yeah, Barrios might have something, on the wide areas, but overall, they're a team that seems to be a patchwork type team. They do have Acosta, and obviously former Whitecap Nicholas Mosqueda. The guy that is interesting is Cole Bassett. And I don't know, like he's been a young player for a while there, homegrown, and they have big thoughts on him, but I don't know if he can elevate himself that quickly.
You haven't mentioned the fact that 2 things. 1, they lost Declan Wynn.
Yes.
Yeah.
2, they've signed Yaya Toure. Oh wait, no, it's a homegrown player named Yaya Toure. Sorry.
I was like, have I missed a big news story here?
Yaya Toure signed.
Okay.
Homegrown. Yeah.
Well, one thing I will say that with Kamiri going down to San Antonio and everything else, they have a chance for the best hair in MLS with Lalas Abu Bakar or whatever. Abu Bakar. Yeah, he has.
I think all 3 of us murdered that name there. So
yeah, he has the best hair in MLS probably.
Well, let's move down to Texas, where Jasa Kamiri has done. So you've got Austin coming in. What do you expect from them this season? Competitive, down the bottom?
I think they'll be all right.
Nice, Steve. Nice. The film came out like the year I think I graduated from high school, in and around there.
So I mean, do you think they will be all right?
Well, I do think it's always so hard.
Yeah.
With these, because when you look at some of the players they're brought in, like Alex Ring, Diego Fagundes, Matt Beasler, Kudamane. There's a few good.
Danny Hosen,
Nick Lima. There's some quality players there. So
Gallagher.
They've been competitive pre-season. I like they've done well against Dallas, Houston. They beat San Antonio.
They got Ben Sweat. No, I think one of the things I feel bad for them is they is like all clubs, I guess, but is they're not going to get to play in front of their supporters. Like that's one of the biggest.
But they are. It's Texas.
They are. It's Austin.
Oh right. Oh okay. Then yeah, I think they're.
They're opening it up. There's even going to be away fans at the Texan derbies.
Oh my goodness. Forgot it's a different world down there. Was it true that the baseball games were like selling out to capacity?
Yeah, the first one was a full stadium.
Oh my goodness.
Was it 70-odd thousand or something? I saw that and
Were you sick?
Literally, yeah. Like we've been talking about this. We see stuff with crowds now and it's just you're like, oh my God, crowds. It's got to that stage. I can't imagine going back to that.
Back in a crowd, but I think the time has to be right. Yeah. And I don't think the time is right.
Well, the thing is, WrestleMania was like had full crowds. It was this weekend.
Oh my goodness! It took this long. I was waiting. It took.
Honestly, I wasn't really paying attention to that.
25,000 was who were there, so it was about a quarter capacity.
Yeah, but there was tons of people.
There was no social distancing that was meant to go on.
No social distancing. No masks were missing on a lot of people, so it wasn't that safe at all.
Were they hitting each other with chairs?
Yeah, that was just the Scottish folk that were there.
Did they not wear the luchador mask? Don't tights keep in all the COVID?
Let's get back to talking about Texan teams on the pitch then. Dallas, 7 in, 10 out, lost some big names, really, and Freddy Vargas, a 22-year-old winger from Venezuela, has come in. Sean, a 20-year-old Hungarian who came through the Ajax youth system. That's the main additions. They were 6th last year. Went a very exciting team. I think every year we have Dallas dropping out. I have them again this year dropping out. I don't think they're going to be that good.
No, they'll have a strong start. And
Oh
then
yeah,
by
they
the
always
summertime,
do that. Yeah.
the summertime they'll be dropping. I was surprised that they actually. I think whole thing about them last year is obviously there was no start, and so they had no time to drop down. And then I think they were one of the 2 teams that didn't make the tournament, so they were again their start was more delayed. So basically, their start was in September, August, so there was no time to drop.
That was true. That is very, very true.
Yeah.
I wanted to turn the attention to Houston though, because I fancy Houston to make the playoffs. I like their additions. Defensively, they've brought in Timmy Parker. In the midfield, they've brought in Derek Jones from Nashville. They've brought in Joe Corona. They got Corona, baby. Up front, or forwards anyway, it's like they've got Maxi Urruti, who can be very hit or miss, and Fafa Pico. So, bottom last year, but they've brought in some strong guys. I mean, they've lost some big names as well. Cabrera, Martinez, Pena, Salazar, Garcia, Nika Hansen. They've all moved on, but I think they've built good, and I think they're going to be contenders this year for playoffs.
I think they have a chance. They're one of the teams that obviously I would put them definitely in the 8 spot. They would probably, if the Whitecaps are in the 7th spot, Houston will be the main contender. And I could see, I think I said it before, where I see 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 being all in that mix to make the playoffs. So although while I said they're not going to make the playoffs, I could easily see them making the playoffs.
They still have Darwin Quintero though. Yeah, they have a formidable.
Yeah. They've always had a great attack. It's just they can't seem to string results together.
And they have that new baseball logo.
Oh, yeah. Well, or
as the Padres.
It's Dulwich Hamlet is what they've gone for. They've just completely ripped off Dulwich Hamlet.
Don't confuse people, Mike.
Now, let's look at Mini. That's the team that we feel are going to be strong. 4th last year. I think the names that they've brought in, Adrian Heath, has done what I want the Whitecaps to do and brought in quality from around the league. You've brought in the defence, Yuka Raitala, Montreal captain, outstanding for Montreal, good on and off the pitch. In the midfield, Nico Hansen, Will Trapp. Forwards, Juan Agudelo. Key experienced additions to an already good Minnesota squad. And then a 31-year-old TAM striker from Argentina, Ramon Abia, who scored 23 goals in 48 appearances for Boca Juniors. Exciting prospect. He's a kind of guy that, from previous experience from other guys, has the potential to light it up in MLS. That's why I'm all in on Minnesota this year.
But you haven't talked about how they're going to recover from the huge loss of Jose Aja.
Yeah.
I don't think that's that big a loss.
Well, they brought in Nanaimo's Caleb Montgomery.
Yes.
Yeah. The big loss for them is Kevin Molino and how that's going to play out. Because
he was a key piece for them last
year.
He was
their talisman, yeah. Has Kai Kamara landed somewhere? I don't think he has.
Not that I know of, no.
So he's still available, eh?
Mm-hmm.
I personally think the Opara Boxall combination, and if Montgomery is the 3rd guy or 4th guy or whoever it is, I think that's fantastic setup there. And then they're keeping, goalkeeping. You do have Dwayne St. Clair, but you also have Tyler Miller there. He's a more obviously, and he's not even that old. He's like not even 30 yet.
Yeah, they're stacked.
I think you have
stacked there.
You have 2 very good goalkeepers. So I think those 2 guys can push each other. I think they're really strong up the middle, basically, and I think that's going to be their main focus.
One thing to disagree about you, Michael, is Yuka Raitala. I often found watching him from Montreal, he wasn't like quick enough. He didn't have the pace.
There is that.
So I worry about that, especially if he's playing next to Boxall and Opara, who are big and not like slow.
Yeah, Boxy's not the quickest, although his improvement from what he was like when he was here to when he came back into the league is like, wow.
Yeah. But so I worry about that. They're going to have to maybe compensate for that with someone quick in defensive midfielder who can cover or a winger who can overlap in in defense.
And I am concerned that they are getting like there are like a lot of, I know veterans and experience is good, but they are getting older. And I'm just worried that a congested season like this could tire them down. Like, how much does Alonso have left in the tank? He's 36 years old at this point. And so I'm just concerned about that, but they are stacked in quite a few positions where they can be very dangerous.
Yeah, but I mean, that's it for the West. There's no other teams I can think of that take part in the Western Conference, and that no one worth talking about, really. There's a couple of Cascadian teams, so let's just lump them together because they're the same thing, really.
Totally forgot about them until you mentioned it.
Seattle, Portland. Seattle, Western Conference champs, MLS Cup runners-up, been in the MLS Cup for 4 of the last 5 years. They've brought in 4 new players, 2 ex-Whitecaps, Freddie Montero, Spencer Ritchie. They've brought in 2 midfielders, Brazilian João Paulo, Kellen Rowe from New England. A couple of big departures, I guess, like Leerdam's going to Miami, Gustav Svensson's going to China. They've lost Jordan Morris, of course, who was on loan to Swansea and is now out with an injury. They still look strong, they still look stacked.
I'm surprised you didn't mention your favorite Ramon Torres.
Oh, yes. He has gone. I'm sure he'll return. He seems to just keep coming back like a bad smell.
I think João Paulo could be really good for them. Yeah. I think Kellen Rowe is a good addition for them. And I think Brian Smetzer is going to know how to get the best out of the Colombian, unfortunately.
He has looked very good for them pre-season.
He's got access to his coffee then.
I was going to say it's the coffee.
Yeah. Well, I guess since we're talking about Freddie, let's just play a little bit of audio from Brian Smetzer this week, asked by Tom Boger of MLS just what he's made of Freddie Montero in his return to the club and what he's expecting from him this season.
How is Freddie Montero's return to the team kind of, gone so far this preseason? And, what can you say about the, 2 forward formations that we might be seeing from you guys this year?
Great question. Kind of a softball, though, because Freddie's a great player, tremendous player. He calls Seattle home. He's building a house, his family. It's a really good story. Here's the guy that scored the first goal in our club's history in MLS. And now he's choosing to come back to Seattle to end his career. He has been great in the locker room. He has been nurturing the young kids. I can't say enough positive things about Freddie's return.
Brian Smetzer there just talking a little bit about Freddie Montero. You can be sure he is going to light it up, and you can almost put money on the fact that he's going to score against the Whitecaps at some point this year. I wish him well. I do like Freddie. And he was always very generous with his time when we wanted to chat with him. Didn't give me a free coffee travel mug from his shop, though. Gave one to Har, but that's okay. I've kind of got over that. Well, not really, but let's move on. Portland, 3rd in the West last year. The one, of course, MLS is back. Claudio Bravo has come in. He's a TAM defender from Argentina. Jose Carlos Van Rankin, who's a fullback on loan from Mexico. Chilean forward Felipe Mora has permanently signed on a TAM deal. They lost Cascadian to Austin, Farfan to LAFC, Villafana to LA Galaxy. They still look strong. I mean, they looked good in the CONCACAF Champions League so far, if you're using that as a gauge, but they'll be there or thereabouts. But it's the playoffs again. You just have to watch for them because they've got the experience and they know how to win.
Yeah, I think they're not at the level of the previous teams we talked about being, like we talked about 5 teams making the playoffs from last year's 8. They're not. There's 4 teams and then there's Portland. And I think Portland could easily slide into any of that top 4 positions if they have a good run, but they're kind of like on the outside looking in of that top 5.
I think as Diego Valeri goes, so goes Portland. He's another year older. He's 34. I think he has been and will continue to be the key for them.
He's not a has-been, Zach.
I think you guys are right in your assessment in terms of them probably being in like 4th, 5th, 6th kind of spot.
I think Obibise is going to be the key for Portland.
Yeah.
I think he could actually elevate. He's hitting like 23, 24. I think he could be a striker that could, eventually go to Europe.
Ebobisse, Jeremy?
Yeah.
And like in Seattle, I know we're kind of just talking about it and joking a little bit, but I do, with Morris being out, I think this is a chance for Freddie to shine. And I think he is going to be really, really good and influential for Seattle.
One other thing about Portland, I really, really don't rate their keepers. Steve Clark,
they've not had good keepers for a while.
Steve Clark with that crapping celebration in Columbus, he's not good. And then Antonella is the backup. I don't think those either are good enough to carry you where you need to go.
But that is it for our Western Conference preview and predictions. Let us know who you've got for the West. Let us know who you've got for the East as well. Let us know who you think might be the standout team, the surprise package, who's going to fall like a ton of bricks, who's going to rise to the top of the table. AFTN Canada on Twitter, aftncanada@hotmail.com. So we're going to be turning our attention to the Eastern Conference for the rest of this episode. But before we get to that, let's have a little musical break, a little blast from our Artist of the Month here at AFTN for April, 90s American band Blast Off Country Style. This is a song from their 1995 EP, In My Arms, and this is You're Mine.
Hi, I'm Mark Dos Santos, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Our Artist of the Month for April here at AFTN, American band from the 90s, Blast Off Country Style, with their song, You're Mine. So let's get back to the football chat now, and we're moving east with our look at the MLS Eastern Conference. Won't be as comprehensive as the West, because we all know the West is best, but there are a few things we do want to talk about that is happening out east, and of course the reigning champions hail from the Eastern Conference, Columbus Crew. And they're actually kicking off their campaign this weekend with an absolutely fantastic encounter against Supporters Shield champs Philadelphia Union, and there's been a bit of chatter about that this week. It's something that I think a lot of us would like to see as a regular occurrence to kick off the season. MLS champs against Supporters Shield champs. Do you think that's a good idea? Let us know. For me, the match-up of the weekend is that game between Philadelphia and Columbus. Not according to Inter Miami boss Phil Neville, though. To him, the biggest game this weekend is his team taking on the LA Galaxy, in part because of the Beckham connection and all the interest that he's had from back home in England. Kind of your English manager self-importance there. Nowhere near the biggest game of the weekend for me. I actually threw that out on Twitter as a quick poll as well, just to kind of see what listeners and readers thought. So the time of recording this, there's still 12 hours left of the vote. For 165 votes in, the current standings has, maybe a little bit surprisingly, maybe not, since it's a Canadian site, TFC v Montreal, the Canadian derby, 41.8%, Columbus Philadelphia, 32.7%, Miami LA Galaxy, 13.3%, then Seattle Minnesota, 12.1%. I stuck that in because I felt it was like the possible top two in the West meeting the first game of this season. There's been a couple of write-in votes for Vancouver versus Portland, just because it's a Cascadian derby. I still think Columbus Philly is the big one. Both those teams in action this week successfully in CONCACAF Champions League action, going through to the quarterfinals. And I want to bring you a little bit of audio now from Philadelphia head coach Jim Curtin, defending the Supporters' Shield, just asking him how prepared he feels for this season after having his first experience of CCL action and actually getting competitive games under his belt instead of just friendlies. Here's what he had to tell me. Hi again, Jim.
How you doing?
This is the first season that you've gone into the season with some meaningful competitive games behind you as opposed to pre-season friendlies. Do you feel that you're seeing the team at a different level than you have going into other seasons? I know your first opponents will be the same, but it's such a competitive conference that you've got in the East. Do you think this is going to give you a little bit of a head start?
It's a great observation, and it is 100% true. Every coach right now that hasn't gotten real live action in an elimination type game like the Champions League is wondering what they're going to look like when the opening whistle blows. You know, I think us in Columbus, I think Caleb has a pretty good feel now, as do I. We're both missing a few players and with some injuries, but you know, certainly to have the live action, at least at the start, I think is an advantage. Talk to me again later in the competition if we continue to advance and you're playing those midweek games with the weekend games. Then it can become difficult just with the load. But again, these are games you want to be a part of. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely. Nothing prepares you, for that opening whistle and first kickoff in MLS quite like elimination games and the unexpected intensity down in Costa Rica and how hard it is to go on the road with a young group and find a way to get a result that can really galvanize you. It certainly did for our group. I can only imagine what it did for teams like Toronto who got a result missing so many key players, and then Columbus, the dominant performance that they put on. Hopefully they finish things off tonight. You could look at every performance from MLS teams so far. And maybe I don't like to use the word comfortable, but they've been fairly comfortable so far, which is a sign that this league continues to get better and better.
It certainly is. I'm looking forward to this MLS season. I think it's going to be a cracker. Philadelphia Union head coach Jim Curtin there. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but every time I speak to Jim Curtin, as I always say, I really enjoy speaking to Jim Curtin. He's one of my favourite managers in the league to chat with. So, you've heard our thoughts on the West. We're just going to do a little bit on these. We're not going to delve too much into that because we don't pay that much attention to the East, really, if we're being honest. Definitely listen to episode 439. We've got Yves Powell on that from the Ball is Round Montreal podcast, giving a great insight into CF Montreal and what to look forward to them this year after a very, very eventful off-season. Let's just get straight off the bat. Who's going to win the regular conference for the East this year, guys?
I got Miami winning the East.
Oh, that's a bold prediction. Continuing our bold predictions.
I was going to say, I thought the bold prediction part was come and gone. Yeah. For the East, I don't think Philadelphia is going to repeat. They were top last year, right?
They were, yes.
Yeah,
they won the regular season. Obviously, Columbus are the MLS champs.
Yeah, I'm going to put Columbus. I think I like what they've done. I like some of the players they brought in. And I think they're going to have some momentum. I'm going to go with Columbus.
Yeah, I'm actually going with Columbus as well. Very short sample size for this season. They looked impressive in Champions League action. And I think they're just going to build on what they've done last year. Philadelphia, I think, will be up and about there. Let's turn our attention to the two Canadian sides. So we had Eve in the show last week chatting about Montreal, so we'll come to them shortly. But let's start off with TFC. Vanney-less, Greg Vanney has moved on after a very successful time in building the team. You've got Chris Armas that come in. He's very highly thought of throughout MLS. When you speak to coaches, a lot of them's got a lot of good things to say about him. Mark DeSantis has as well. They've been quiet, to say the least. They lost Laurent Simon. He's now become assistant manager at Montreal. Tony Gallagher, the only other guy that's moved out, and their only addition, Jordan Perusa, a homegrown. They've basically kept the same squad as last year. For now, I'm stunned by that. I'm very surprised by that. I think it's going to hit them hard.
You shouldn't be, because this is the Ali Curtis approach, right? What he was doing at Deadbolt. This is going to be a very much different Toronto organization. I think there are people in Toronto who are worried about the direction that things are going since Bezbachenko left. Now with Vanny leaving, you have Curtis taking over, bringing in one of his own, and Armas. Long term, I have a lot of concerns for Toronto and where they're going to end up. But in terms of those things, I don't think it's a huge surprise. I think Simon is a bit of a addition by subtraction. I think he was not great defensively for them. But I think they needed to add some pieces, and particularly at the back. And I don't think I don't think their days of battling for silverware are, other than the Voyageurs Cup, I think behind them.
Yeah, I think they will make the playoffs, but I think they'll have a tough start to the season. I see them bringing in some players in the summer.
Yeah,
and I think that's when you're going to see a lot of players, because I think they feel they probably have the tools to handle the first half, and I don't think they really want to pick scraps. I think they want to get the top players in for the summer, and I think that's where you might see guys like Bradley and Altidore move on, and they replace them with new players.
I can't see them moving on in the summer. I also think this is a bit of a COVID thing where if you're MLSE, you don't need to spend millions of dollars to get people into the stadium or get them excited.
Yeah, very sense. Yeah. And
so why would you do that? You hope the new coach can tweak things enough to make you competitive. But I as much as I agree with you, Michael, in terms of Chris Armas being, well spoken with some good ideas. I've listened to some of your conversations that you've shared with him on the podcast. I long term, I just don't see it playing out well.
Yeah, I think they're going to struggle at the start of the season. They've got the Champions League to contend with, and it was a great result to get a draw in Lyon. I know it was fortunate that their goal was an own goal, but I mean, to get that goal, to take back to the second leg, I mean, they kept Lyon at bay and they looked good. Then the second leg, if anything, was even better. Undermanned, playing with some academy guys, a lot of young guys, inexperienced side out there. Came away with a 2-1 win over Lyon, going through to the next round. They've got a tough tie ahead against Cruz Azul, but just fantastic performance all round. Gutsy, considering everything they've been through pre-season, the fact they just haven't been playing, haven't been training, everything like that. And I got a chance to speak with Chris Armas after that win on Wednesday night against Lyon, just to ask him about the momentum from this going into the start of this season this weekend and a Canadian derby against Montreal. Here's what he had to tell me. Congratulations on the win, Chris.
Thank you.
Playing competitive matches as opposed to pre-season friendlies is obviously going to get the team in a much better shape. It's meaningful games. Do you feel this is going to give you a little competitive advantage now at the start of the season? I guess you won't know till you hit the pitch, but is that what you're thinking, just from what you've seen from the guys? They're at a different level than from what some of the other teams might be?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, but you think about having to prepare for these types of matches early on. There's positives and negatives, right? Like we're forced to push the envelope, right? We're representing Canada in this tournament. We have that privilege, and we have to go to Mexico with difficult circumstances. We have there's certain things that are working against us. But as we've tried to push the intensity of training each day and each week, we've had some injuries along the way, right? So that it just, as much as you get this playoff type mentality early on, which is a big plus, we've taken some hits too along the way, but we made no qualms about it. We were going after it, so we were going to push, and I think we prepared the team, and the guys, deserve that credit, right? What an effort! But yes, either way, we internally, from Bill Manning, Ali Curtis, we said we're going to go after this tournament. But as the head coach, I mean, I'm in on that and driving that messaging and pushing it every day. I was expecting momentum after this. Win, lose, the momentum that would carry into the MLS season, especially, getting young players, valuable minutes. This is going to help us moving forward.
So Chris Armas there talking about the momentum that he feels this CONCACAF Champions League run, these games against Lyon, is going to give his team, whether they had won it or lost it or whatever. Just he felt they were going to get a bump going into the new season, and I guess we'll see exactly what that looks like on Saturday. But as for how the rest of the season plays out, I guess that is going to be an interesting one to watch. I feel they needed to make a couple of additions that they haven't made. I agree with Steve. I think they will then make those additions in the summer. Could be a Whitecaps situation as well, that it's hard to get a guy to join when you're going to be then living in Florida for who knows how long. So, I mean, they may have had the same issues. Montreal, on the other hand, they've not really had the issues with that regard. But I think they're going to struggle initially, and it's going to be a real battle for them to make the playoffs because the East looks really, really strong this season. I think they will. I think they'll get in maybe 6th or 7th. And then this is the kind of team that can raise the game, and they've got the difference makers that can do it when it gets to the playoff and the experience to get there.
Exactly. They have the experience of it.
You just have to make the playoffs ultimately in MLS, and then it's a whole different season after that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Montreal, quickly look at them. 9 players in, 11 players out. They've lost some key pieces. Bojan moved on. Raitala, they let his contract expire and he went down to the Western Conference. Urruti's gone. I mean, Raitala's a big blow. It's their captain. He's gone to Minnesota. They've lost some interesting pieces there. They renewed some of the loan deals that they had. They brought in Kamal Miller, that I think is a great addition defensively. In the midfield, they've got Mihailovic, who's highly thought of in the American programme. Bjorn Johnson up front is a guy that's done it all over Europe in the top leagues. Nothing to think he's not going to do it in MLS. And of course, Zach's favourite son. Or one of them, I don't know.
Eric Hurtado, baby.
You like Eric.
Yeah, who doesn't like Eric Hurtado?
A good guy to have off the bench. I mean, Steve, then, what do you think of Montreal? They've got a new coach. Mm-hmm. Eve feels that they're too young a team and this is going to be a season of struggle for them.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I don't see them making the playoffs because the East is pretty strong too. I don't see them making the playoffs. I see them being as competitive. There'll be less handballs this year. But other than that, I think they should be fine. It's just a matter, and they got to get used to the new team name. They got to find their new identity.
Yeah, it's too bad Joe's not here for you for that. That was all for Joe.
That was for Joe.
We'll bring that up next Sunday.
Joe, I miss Joe. Looking forward to seeing him one day. Yeah, Montreal. I agree with what you said, Steve, in terms of struggling, not being a playoff team. I think the fact that the way they went about changing the identity of the club couldn't be a worse time with not having people in the stadium and not having them to be excited about some stuff and then making all these other big changes. I think if they known like 100% that Thierry Henry wasn't going to be there this year, I don't think they would have made these changes at this time. Personally, I might be wrong. I don't think so. Michael, I really enjoyed you asking MDS about the change.
Yeah, I've wanted to do it for a while, and I didn't want to do it in one of the main media calls because I like to have that as our exclusive stuff.
It was really good, and I agree with Mark. Like we've talked about before, this was you jettisoned the whole history of the club, all for the sake of marketing, all for the sake of money. And when you had something that North American football clubs long for, you had history.
Yeah.
I don't think Montreal is going to make the playoffs. I think it's going to be a season of struggle for them. If Johnson can light it up for them, though, that might be the thing that tips them over. And like I say, I really like Kamal Miller's addition. That really solidifies their back line. It looks at another highly competitive season in the East with very little room for error. And of course, Montreal, as we mentioned, have a new head coach at the helm. It's a transition. He's learned a lot under Thierry Henry. He's brought those same philosophies into the team this season. That man, of course, is Wilfried Nancy. Here's a little bit from him just chatting about this season to come. What are you expecting from the Eastern Conference this season? It's always a very competitive conference. There's a lot of teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that's made some big splashes to get in. Just how competitive do you feel your team's going to be, and just what do you think you'll make of the East this year?
We know that with the East Conference, it's a lot of teams can make the playoff. So us, what we want to do is to be a part of the 7 team to make the playoff. So again, it's a process. The player knows that we have to win a certain numbers of game to make the playoff. But again, we have a vision. We have a clear vision about what we want to do. And every game is going to be different. We know that. And the objective is to get a kind of a history of victory, to give confidence to the player to go forward, to move forward. So this is the plan. But what I want also is to see my team improve about what we want to do. This is the most important, because we know that if they do well on that, if they respect the concept, if they enjoy about what we want to do with the ball and without the ball, the consequence will be the playoff. But we know also that it's going to be tough, because this is the reality, but they are ready to do this challenge.
Montreal head coach Wilfried Nancy there. Certainly got a tough task on his hands to get the Impact back into the playoffs, you feel, this year. Can see Toronto just making it. I can see Montreal not making it. Any surprise packages for you guys in the East? I guess Steve's got Miami since he's got them winning the whole thing.
But I also have another surprise would be, I don't know how much of a surprise, but I think New England Revolution is going to be huge this year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Bruce Arena, guy that's been there, done that.
I don't know if they're bothered to win the whole thing, but I think they can make some run in the playoffs like Columbus did last year.
For me, it's Nashville. Again, I don't know how big a surprise that is since they finished 7th last year, but I think they're going to build on that, and I think they're going to be top 4, top 5 in the East.
I would like to see that from Nashville. New England, I was thinking the same thing, and a few days ago or a while ago, I was looking at the comings and goings of their squad, and I was surprised at how many stalwarts of that team are now gone under Bruce Arena. So I think Steve, it could go either way. It could be like you say, they're the
I think he made these changes to get better. That's essentially what he did. So it's just a matter of whether they find that chemistry.
But it feels a little bit risky.
Yeah, but Bruce Arenas has always been good at bringing players together from when the massive changes are made.
The key
I think he's kept the key players he likes, and he's bringing in players that he wants to help those players elevate.
The key thing, the most exciting thing for me was when I looked at it, it does look like Tejan Buchanan is going to play a significant role for them.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. Who have you got to make the MLS Cup from the East? I'm sticking with Columbus. I think they're going to back again.
Yeah, I have Columbus as well. It's just I felt the regular season is different, and I don't know if Columbus will play up to the top spot but I think Columbus is the strongest team.
I want to provide a contrarian option, but I too am going to go with Caleb Porter's Columbus Crew.
Again, a guy that knows how to win in this league and been there and done it. And I don't think. I feel some folk don't value that MLS experience as much as it is, because it is a very unique league to win. And if you can win in this league, it's something that you're going to do again and again.
But I got some, there's a lot of teams that could surprise, Orlando could surprise. Orlando, New England. What was the other team I was thinking of?
Orlando had a good year last year, and it depends what Perea, if he can take them to the next level, I guess.
And I don't know if it's a surprise, but and nobody talks about Atlanta, it seems like, anymore, but they could win it all out too. So it's a lot of teams in there. Yeah, there's a lot of teams in there. And if Toronto does do the opposite of what Zach is saying and they bring in some changes in the summer, they could be somebody that in the playoffs, once they get to that, they could shock everybody too.
Totally.
So,
who's the coach again in Atlanta again now?
Gabriel Heinze.
Oh, yeah.
Argentine. World Cup star.
Good man.
No, he's dirty. He's got hair. He's got crazy hair. Let's see if he's still. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he still has it.
Oh, and they did beat Chattanooga.
Oh, yeah, he played for Steve's United for like 4 years. That's why I don't like him.
So Gabriel Heinze doesn't do interviews in English, so no audio from him on the show, but I have got a little bit of Atlanta audio. After their win in CONCACAF Champions League action, I asked Brooks Lennon pretty much the same thing that I asked Jim Curtin at the top of this part, just how he feels this preparation in this competition has got Atlanta ready for the MLS season to come. Here's what he told me. Having these competitive, meaningful games before the MLS season gets underway, how much better prepared do you feel this has the team going into the season and what's going to be a busy first month compared to just playing the usual friendlies?
It's so important. Playing these two first games before even our first MLS game is so good mentally for us, physically as well, to be able to play in real meaningful games and to qualify for the next round is big time from us. So it definitely helps a lot. Whereas other MLS teams are just playing, friendlies, which are not even close to as competitive as these games are. So it's definitely a competitive advantage for us, and we're happy to be in Champions League this year.
Atlanta United's Brooks Lennon there. Okay, so our final bold prediction before we wrap this show up. The 5 MLS teams had fantastic showings in the CONCACAF Champions League this week, all 5 progressing through to the quarterfinals. Is this the season that an MLS team finally wins the CONCACAF Champions League?
No.
It was a nice start to the thing for them, for the campaign, but I agree with Steve, no.
Well, I'm going to be contrarian and say yes.
Who is it going to be then, Michael?
Caleb Porter?
I kind of think possibly. A lot is really going to depend on the priority that they give to it. And like Caleb spoke about this in the press conference after the draw, it's like they're going for it. But then so are Portland. Savarese said that this is a priority for them. So if teams are really, really prioritising that, it might help the Whitecaps next week if they decide to rest a few of the guys. But I can see one of the teams doing it. It's all up to the Mexican teams, of course, and how well they perform. But TFC have put one of the teams out. There's only 3 Mexican teams now in the quarterfinals. TFC face another one, Cruz Azul, in that quarterfinal matchup. It's all really going to be dependent, I guess, on how these Mexican teams do. They still have to be the favourites. But I've enjoyed the competition so far. I really can't wait to the next round. But that is it for this episode of the AFTN Soccer Show. Our look at the Eastern and Western MLS conferences. Hope you've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed this show. I've enjoyed putting it together. Enjoyed all the little chats, jumping on the calls that MLS have had this week. I mean, MLS gets a lot of stick, and rightly so, for a number of reasons. But I've got to say, their PR team has been fantastic this week, putting all these calls together. Got to ask quite a few questions to a number of coaches and players. It helps grow the league. It helps grow interest in the league. So I hope you've enjoyed it. We've still got more to come this week. We've got our preview show coming out tomorrow. Joe Deasy, Peter Hicken, looking forward to Vancouver versus Portland on Sunday. And then don't forget, on Sunday, we are going to have our live watch along on YouTube. So please make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, youtube.com/AFTN Canada. You'll know when we go live. We're kind of aiming, I think, for 7:15 if it is what I'm expecting it to be, like a 7:20 kickoff. So please join us for that. We'll also have a podcast coming out on Monday, just kind of looking back at the game, and we've got some other fun audio things that I've been putting together this week. But just before we go, guys, let everyone know where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter at WhitecapsBeat.
You can find me back on Twitter at ZacharyAM.
You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Read our stuff on the website, aftn.ca. And as I said, give us a follow on YouTube, AFTN Canada, and Instagram, AFTN Soccer. As always, thank you so much for listening. Take care and stay safe, guys. And Mon the Caps.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers, away from the numbers.